Hey friends, good morning. How's everyone doing today? Today we're going to be heading back to the raised beds because I want to interplant some Chinese forget-me-nots amongst my ranunculus beds. What I'd really like to do this year is try to get 2 crops of ranunculus. I want to get that beautiful spring crop, but then I also want to just leave the corms in the ground and attempt to get a late fall, early winter crop. But I don't want those beds to just sit completely empty all summer long, so I decided what to do is interplant them with Chinese forget-me-nots. Now, this is the annual cutting version of a forget-me-not, and I believe the Latin is Cynoglossum. So I feel like things can get confusing really quickly when it comes to the common name forget-me-not, because I've heard it used for 3 different plants. We have the biennial forget-me-not, which you sow in the fall, which likes more of a woodland part shade setting, and then it will bloom the following spring. That's usually very low to the ground, and people will just generally call that common forget-me-not. Then we have Cynoglossum, which we're going to be sowing today, which is an annual Chinese forget-me-not, which grows to about 2 to 3 feet tall and is a wonderful cut flower, wonderful blue filler in bouquets. And you can sow those as a cool flower or a warm season flower. I've done both. And then sometimes I even hear Brunnera referred to as false forget-me-not. So today I'm going to use the Latin Cynoglossum for what we're planting, and I'm really excited to see if this works out well, interplanting ranunculus and Cynoglossum in the same bed. It's such a beautiful day today, and even though I still haven't got around to mulching the main flower walk, I'm just kind of pressing forward on these jobs that need to get done before things get really hot around here. But you can see I have some ivory Floridale tulips in this bed. And friends, I think the other week I incorrectly said that those tulips right there were mondial, but it's actually this one here that's a double, that's mondial. And then back in the raised bed, we have, what was it called? Parissima. Yes, I think that's what it actually is. I don't think these beds were in bloom the last time we talked. So here we have Pink Impression. That's this really bright, tall pink one, more of a hot pink. Then Janis Joplin is this purpley pink. And then here's Columbus. I used to grow Columbus in the main flower walk, but I wanted to try different heights of tulips together as mixes and see how that worked. So hopefully all of these will be in bloom for our Saturday walkabout. But here's the 2 beds of ranunculus. One is pink pickety, one is orange pickety. So let's just go ahead and sow the Chinese forget-me-nots together right here. So I'm going to tackle 2 jobs at once here. I'm going to hoe my ranunculus bed, get rid of any weeds, and then the little divot that the hoe makes, I'll just sow my forget-me-not seeds right in there. You can get Chinese forget-me-nots in a few different colors. I would say the most desirable color is blue, and the most popular cultivars are Firmament, and I believe one called, it's Blue Shadows or Blue Sky. I'll put it on the screen, but I always grow Firmament because that seed is a little bit cheaper and easier to get. There's also a pink variety and I believe a white variety, but if you ask me, you just can't beat blue flowers in the garden. So here are the seeds that I'm going to be using today, and I'll show you what they look like. It's a nice big, almost spiky like seed. It almost reminds me of calendula and orlea coming together as one seed. Whenever I'm direct sowing a flower, I like to go ahead and sow fairly thickly. I would rather go ahead and sow thickly to begin with and thin later than sow a bed and find out a week or 2 later that I did not have enough seeds germinate. So I'm sowing about 1 seed every inch, and then once I see that all of these are up and thriving, I'll go ahead and thin them out to about 9 inches apart. Now that we've got our seeds in the ground, I'll just go ahead, cover them up with soil because they need darkness to germinate. So over the last few years, I've been trying to do more and more interplanting. It sounds like Grace is also excited about interplanting, but as I get older and I do this longer, what I really want to do is always make my focal flower a bulb of some kind, whether that be a true bulb like a daffodil or a tulip, or something like a ranunculus corm or a gladiolus corm or a dahlia tuber. Because I only have a half acre, I feel like the best way for me to get the most out of my property is to have the focal flower always be a bulb, to try to interplant basically the filler and secondary flowers around that bulb, and then to just use shrub foliage as my foliage and not grow any more annual foliage. That's kind of my plan moving forward. I've been feeling like I needed to go in that direction for a few years, and the longer I grow on a half acre, that just seems to be a really great use of my space. You know, I want this to become something that I can do for the rest of my life, and I need to kind of scale back on a lot of the things that I'm growing from seed and just be really smart about what I'm planting, when I'm planting it, and what I'm planting it with. So especially in the next few videos, as we start to flip these raised beds for summer, you're going to see me interplant, I believe, almost every single bed with the exception of my saving Grace dahlias. If you're brand new to the concept of interplanting, or sometimes you'll hear it referred to as intercropping, it's usually talked about a lot with vegetable gardening, and when I used to manage a large vegetable farm, I did tons of interplanting, but for whatever reason it's not talked about quite so much when it comes to cut flowers. And so my hope here is to really be a great resource for what works and what doesn't work together. So let's go ahead, give this scenario a try. The only other thing I was thinking about was doing saponaria in between these, but since these are my front beds, I want these to look somewhat ornamental throughout the entire growing season, and saponaria goes to seed quite quickly after it's done blooming, whereas Chinese forget-me-nots, I can just kind of cut here and there as I need, and it will continue to look nice basically the entire growing season. So I'll be doing the saponaria with some lilies, because those are really just a one cut and done. So let's go ahead and get these seeds watered in really well. Thankfully, it's going to be raining the next 3 days, so I'll water these in really well today. But nature is really going to take care of these seeds for us with all that upcoming rain. You should expect to see forget-me-nots really quickly, 5 to 7 days, I would say, as long as you keep the soil moist. Well, I'm really excited to see how this works out. The ranunculus should bloom in about a month's time. Then the forget-me-nots should bloom in about 2.5 months. And then by the time I'm ready to basically clear the bed of the forget-me-nots, I'll cut them at ground level, and hopefully by that time the ranunculus will have sprung back into action, because here in my area in the summer the ranunculus go completely dormant. It's just too hot for them. So let's go ahead and see if this experiment works. And as always, I really love learning from you, and especially now moving forward with this interplanting concept in all of my raised beds. I would love to hear about what does work with interplanting in your gardens and farms and what doesn't work. I think that would be a really helpful comment section to read and learn from. And one last thing I noticed about Chinese forget-me-nots is that it seems like they really need to be harvested first thing in the morning, put into a holding solution, and then held in a cool area in that holding solution for many hours, really before you put them at your flower stand. If you're at kind of a hot flower stand like I am, where, you know, normal daytime temperatures are mid-80s all the way to 100. So what I do if I'm going to use these at the flower stand is I cut them at about 5:30 to 6 a.m. the day prior to selling them, so that they can sit in that, oh, hi Grace. Grace just knocked herself on the camera. So that they can sit in that holding solution in a cool area for 24 hours prior to me selling them at the flower stand. Well, I think it's time for me to go and give Grace some love and play some ball with her. I want to wish you a wonderful day out there in your gardens, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye.